All right.
Okay. Good morning. I am Taunya Peltier. I am on the Christie Green team as a buyer's agent. I got my license in February of 2019. I've already closed 9 buyers and 4 leases. So I am doing a buyer's representation consultation with you guys this morning.
So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Facebook Live, for those of you that are joining us or will see us later, then I'm glad you're here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the room, so thanks for being here as well. I'm just going to turn it over to you, and this is interactive, and so if you want to ask her a question, just raise your hand, and so take it away, Taunya.
Yeah, all right, excellent, thank you. So, you guys, I always get a little intimidated with the buyer's consultation because it feels like you're selling yourself, and you're like, you want to get a commitment with them. But I found that if you just kind of relax and have a conversation with them about it, then it really helps lighten everyone's mood, and so it just makes it a little more calm for everyone. So we on the team like to hand out buyer home buying guides for our buyers. And so it's just a little booklet that they take home. Normally it's on cardstock. This is just one that we had printed up to make sure it looked right. So it's on cardstock, really professional, feels nice to hold, and something for them to have to take home. So inside there's a letter from Christy. She's our lead agent. So it's a letter about the home buying process that she personalizes. And then it goes into our core values that we talk about as a team. But also you can do this as an agent. Like, I think it's important to have something that you can tell them that that's how you're going to treat all your clients. It makes it easier to go back to kind of like what's the right word I'm looking for?
Checklist.
Thank you.
Accountability.
Yes, it's your own accountability, but also that they can have something written as well, that to know where you're coming from. Because most of the time when you have these consultations, they're not with people that you have a relationship with yet. And so it's good to just put yourself out there and say, these are the things that I strive to give each of my clients, and yes.
So when do you do your buyer consultation? Are you driving around in a car? Do you have them come into the office?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I like to have them come into the office unless if they're looking somewhere much further away, then I try to make it a little more convenient and meet them somewhere. I've done it in coffee shops. I've done it in restaurants, like anywhere that is, if they feel like you're doing another service to them. I mean, obviously you want a committed buyer, so you don't want to be driving all over the Metroplex to meet with someone that may or may not show up. I did that in my first few months. I was so excited, and then it's a 45-minute drive and no one shows up, and so it happens. But if you've had good conversations with them and you know that they're ready to get going, then it's okay to drive partway and meet them. I think just to show them that there's that.
So what if they don't want to take the time? All I want to do is see these houses. What is your conversation to show the value of y'all sitting down and talking about the process?
That's another good question. So there are people that do think that they just can do all the research themselves online and just want to meet you at the house. So if that's really, you cannot get them into the office, I bring this to the first house that we schedule. And then I say, I would love to show you, walk through this house with you, but there are some things that we need to go over just so that there's not any misunderstandings, because this does talk about agency. It talks about my responsibility as an agent. It talks about their responsibility as a client, and just to get those conversations out of the way so that there is that commitment on both sides to work together. Because there could be, you get there and they don't like you, you don't like them, whatever, you don't feel comfortable. You don't want to sign an agreement with someone that you don't feel comfortable working with, and vice versa. So it just is an opportunity to actually get to know someone a little bit better before you commit to buying a house with them.
Because it is your choice as well.
It is, yeah. I mean, don't ever feel that if it's just there's plenty of agents that it may be a better fit for them, and so you can refer out, if it's just something that you don't feel right about. And know that we have that power. I think when you first start, you're so anxious and you just want to work with whoever, but it can create a bad taste in your mouth too, which would be detrimental to your success later, because if you get hurt in that relationship or that transaction, then you kind of guard yourself for everyone else, and that you have to be true to who you are when you're working with these people, because that's the best connection and the best service that you can give them is to be genuine. And that's how I go about it too. I talk to them about, I truly enjoy buying houses with people. Like, it's just, I feel like, I feel like they're my best friend after that, because we've gone through something so much. And then you realize that they move in and you're like, okay, we'll see each other every once in a while. But, like, when they feel like they want to invite you over all the time, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I haven't had you. That's the connection that I enjoy making with them. And so I think I don't look for the next sell. I look for the next person to get to know, to go through the process with. So I think that's a benefit, to being confident in what you have to offer as well, is because then you can say, like, this isn't just about getting you to closing. This is about going through the process with you and making it easier. And our last, one of our last core values is to help our clients have the best experience possible, because we want them to think positively about this home buying process. You hear a lot of horror stories, but it happens obviously, but I just want to have fun, and I want to, make it as less stressful as you can. It is a very stressful time, but I think if you're prepared and you can provide that service for them, it'll relieve some of that stress from them. So, are there any questions so far? That was a lot.
You're good.
Taunya, do you make the consultation even before getting the agreement signed?
That's part of this is part of the agreement process. Like, I go through this book, and then I also go through my IABS as well. So when we're sitting there, because the book, it talks about agency, it talks about why you should have a realtor, it talks about the commission, it talks about, for myself being a buyer's agent, I love to be able to tell them that it's of no cost to them. There's really no reason for them not to have a buyer's agent, because the commission has already been negotiated with the sellers, and so that's being taken care of, and I'll be compensated by the sellers, and so it protects them. It gives them the negotiation powers that I can provide to them, and the services that I provide to them. So I like to go through the book first, and it does depend. This process, it's not a one and done. It's always changing. So if it's a brand new home buyer that's never purchased before, it's a much longer and in-depth conversation that I have with them. We talk about what it looks like to make an offer, and versus someone that's done it, this is their fourth home. Like, yes, they haven't done it recently maybe, but they already kind of know the process, so I can skim over some things. So it just you have to read your client and know where they are in their life and how much information they need. But you also have to know their personality a little too, because some people will just shut down with too much information, whereas other people want the numbers, the facts, the percentages. So you do have to kind of be able to read their personality and what they need, and we have to be chameleons and move to what they need versus what we need ourselves. So it's an ever changing, which is exciting for us, because we don't do the same thing every day. So, all right, so the next page introduces our team, and it talks about, because I'm on a team, it talks about the advantages of the team working all together. But it also explains why a person would need a realtor, and so it talks about how I'm an expert in this process. It's something that they don't do, so I'm an expert in negotiation. I can help them financially advise them on, like, not personal finances, but what the right price for the house is, and do a lot of that research for them. We also must adhere. It talks about us adhering to the Code of Ethics and the fair housing laws, and then we have a standards of practice enforced by the NIR. So it gives us everything that's in the buyer's rep, which is really nice, because then you don't have to go over that so much, because this can be intimidating to some people, because they're like, it's a contract. So, they get a little nervous, but this is presented in a way that we're explaining everything in it, and then we just kind of go over that a little bit later, so it's not as intimidating. But my favorite thing is to say that the best thing, well, I already mentioned this, is that normally it's no cost to my buyers, because it's already been negotiated. And you'll get a question as to, they'll say, well, should I just go and work with the listing agent then? Because if, then I'll get that commission back. And I tell them, no, not necessarily, because it's already been negotiated, they're gonna get that whole commission, and they're only gonna be they're only going to be obligated to get the best for their client. Like if you try to work with one without, so there's really no benefit to not have a buyer's representation. So it makes my job a lot easier because I don't have to talk about, I'm like, it's of no benefit to not. So let's see. This here breaks down the agency. So it talks about, just like IABS, it talks about the buyer's agents, the intermediary agents, and the seller's agents. So I explained to them what that means. And a lot of times, the intermediary, I say, like that's if another agent in our office, our brokerage office, has a listing, then we'll just have to do a little more paperwork and let you guys, and define who works for who so that everyone is represented fairly.
And you can use the IBS.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what's on the IBS as well.
Yeah. So then when we go through to sign this, we'll see. Remember we talked about the agency, so it just kind of reiterates it a little bit more. We do have a little bit of information on working with home builders because that looks a little different. But again, we tell them, remind them that you are being represented because builders agents work for builders, so they're going to want to get the best for their clients.
And that's a really important point because a lot of buyers don't think that, well, I didn't need you, I went to a builder.
And they think because that agent is so nice and brings them coffee or what, and so they get distracted by those things and think that they're being taken care of and they're not. So it's important if your clients, even if they're not, you don't think they're going to look at new builds, they don't know until they get out there. So it's best to just talk about it and tell them, like, if you guys do go and look at a house, I support that for definitely, but just let them know that you're being represented, and if you'll just handle my card or even my name so that they can call me and let me know what you guys talked about. That way we can make sure you're getting the best deal and not just what's being presented at the meeting. So
I tell them the same thing if they're going to open houses.
yes.
So I just remind them, I said, you're welcome, because I know you're going to get excited.
Yeah.
And you're just going to see an open
Driving
house
around.
and driving around and go in and absolutely let them know you're represented and give them my name and my contact. I said, agents love to reach out to the other agent and say, hey, your clients were in, they were so sweet, they love the house, what were their thoughts?
Yes, and that way as well, if they didn't tell me they were going to an open house and the agent calls me and says,
Then
oh,
we
they came
know.
and looked at our house, and I'm like, great, now I know how to contact them again and say, hey, what did you guys think about that house you went to? So it just gives us more opportunity to have that connection with them and let them know that we're working for them. And we do a lot of open houses as buyer's agents, and so same thing, like I ask for their agent's name, and sometimes people say they have an agent because they don't want to be bothered, and so then when I ask for their name, they're like, So it's a good way to just broach that conversation to say, like, you'd be happy to represent them, or just have that conversation too, just because I think a lot of people get a little nervous. They feel that there's a little bit of a salesman, pitch or whatever, but it's not that way. Like, at least for me, I just truly want to help people, and so if it's not that house, I'd love to go look at other houses because I just love looking at houses. So I just want more clients so we can go look at more houses. So let's see. So the next step is we talk about pre-qualification, and I think that that's really important to have in the initial conversation before you start looking at houses, because it does depend on how much they can afford, which may be more or less. It may surprise them that they could afford more. They could be pigeonholing themselves. So it's always good to get pre-approved or pre-qualified. It'll let them know how much they're going to need to put down, and then it'll also let them know the costs associated with buying a home. And so I think that those are things that are definitely important to have hammered out before you start looking, because it can be an exciting process to look at homes, and you can get someone looking at something they can't afford, or and so you just don't want to be a part of that disappointment if they haven't.
So what if a buyer's like, I'll take care of that later. I'll do that later. Let's go look at houses.
Okay, so if there's that, I like to say, well, in the market right now, there are houses that go under contract the day they come on the market, or there's multiples that are there. And if I don't have a letter of pre-approval to put with your offer, most likely it won't even be looked at, just because it puts you in a better position to purchase the house that you've fallen in love with if we have everything in order and can present that to the sellers on the day of the offer. So it's in your best interest to have everything taken care of.
I don't take them. We don't go look at
Oh.
houses unless they're pre-qual. I don't know their shopping power.
Yeah.
It's a litmus test.
Yeah,
They
I'm
won't
like,
talk to a lender.
If
They
they're not
don't-
gonna talk to a lender, why am I?
And
not
that's true
taking
too,
out showing
because
houses?
and I think it's
I'm not their tour guide for Saturday.
yeah, and it's also I think it's perfectly okay to say that we don't want to waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
We don't want to waste your time, and we don't want to waste my time. So let's make sure we have everything done before we go out there, because it would be really sad to have to scramble on something that they fell in love with, and then that will be what they compare everything else to, and they'll never be satisfied.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just it's not a winning game to take them out without being pre-qualified.
And technically, if you're going to provide the correct information, you can't even do an offer
No.
because you don't have
Right, because
any
you
of
have
that
no idea.
information.
You don't know what their loan is going to be. You don't know what their
interest
down
rate, they
payment or
don't-
interest.
no,
Yeah,
you don't
and
know
you
any
can't
of
just
that.
wing it.
Yeah,
No.
don't make that stuff up.
No.
It's not good.
They can go to open houses
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
That's
are
how they
welcome
can
to
shop
go do
around.
that.
Yeah,
They can
but
shop
if
around.
you're going to commit your time and schedule, and that's another convenient thing is we schedule when we're going to go look at houses, so you don't have to go to open houses. And so, you know, that's a service we provide, but we need to make sure that everything is in order before we do that.
Good.
And I think that they appreciate that too, because one, they may not know.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot, you always have to assume they just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and so we are in the education process, and so they're like, oh, they really appreciate it after the fact. They're like, I'm so glad that I went ahead and did that so that we knew, because we bought a house $50,000 more than we thought we could. You know, because everyone has their own ideas of
Yeah.
what is.
Plus, I think you look very professional.
Mhm.
You come across as the knowledgeable person. You come across as trustworthy because you're telling them the whole process, how it transpires, and these are the steps to take, and they can follow steps.
Yes. Yes. Which is why we give them this book, because
Exactly.
it's literally like just turn the
They
page.
can
you
follow
know?
steps. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, I gotta
Yeah.
get pre-approved. Okay.
And so then we have a page here with our mortgage service providers that we have a personal relationship with, and I think it's great as agents for you guys to get out there and make personal relationships with lenders. Don't just do one and done. You know, do a few, because everyone has a different language that they speak financially or emotionally, and so we suggest that they call everyone on our list. Don't just start with the first one, because it may not be about all numbers. Like, it may be about a personal connection that they have with them. And so I'm always all about just call everyone and let me know if you want me to do a personal connection or introduction to that person, so that our lenders are seeing that we're continuously putting them forward, and you know, and building that relationship. And then because they're my clients, they'll give them they'll be like, oh, Taunya, you know, I mean, we can all talk each other up, and it makes it better, because it's not me saying, I'm so good. You know, it's them saying, oh, she's great. She really, you know, knows what she's doing, and you're going to have such a good time, or, you know, and vice versa. So it just makes it a little less intense, I think.
And if I can insert, also, a lot of buyers have different needs financially. Regular W-2 employees and all that, anybody can do that loan. But if they're self-employed, if they're base plus commission, if they work on bonuses and things like that are a little bit niche, you know, not just straightforward, some lenders are better at that than
Yes.
others. Not everybody can do those out-of-the-box, you know, kind of self-employed kind of things. And so it's good to have a couple of different types of lenders that can handle the straight, you know, W-2 employees, you know, conforming loans, and then maybe somebody that has a portfolio product that can do, yes. Huh?
Bilingual.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it's bilingual. I mean, you've got to have, you know, it's arrows in your
Yes.
quiver. You've got to have some resources for these folks.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I've gotten a few clients that are like, oh, I'm just going to go with my bank. And
Yeah.
so we're like, okay, that's great that you have a relationship with them. Like, just compare, you know. And so we talk about why we prefer working with lenders, like local lenders that we have a relationship with, because even if they have a great relationship with their bank, that bank it has rules, so they can't always communicate with us the way that we need to be communicated with. And like I spoke to about having a pre-approval letter, like if it's a Saturday night and we're putting in an offer, that bank is not going to give me that pre-approval letter. I like to change our pre-approval letters to be the purchase amount
It
and
needs to
not whatever they can afford, because that's not negotiation strength for us to
Right.
say like, oh, we could pay this much, but we're not, you know. So I like to have them personalized for the property so that they know that we're speaking with our lenders at that moment, and it's not just a can letter that says that they've been pre-approved. So you can't get that with a big bank, and with any of these lenders, if you develop a relationship with them, call them on Saturday night, they'll be like, I will get that to you right now. And within 20 minutes, they'll usually have a new pre-approval letter over to you, and they'll reach out to the other agent for you. You know, like, so they'll be your supporting system in that process, because it's important to have your client be represented in the best possible light so that they can win if it's a multiple offer situation.
So
Which I think I had 4 multiple offers in my closes, and we won them all. So I'm like, I feel very proud about that, you know.
That's
But
good.
I think it's
Yeah.
because we had everything in line and we were ready to go. And so it wasn't. They came back. Even the sellers agents came back to me and said it wasn't that it was the best offer. It was just we knew who we were working with. And so I mean, sometimes that's as much lending power
It
as
is.
you know as having endless amount of money. So
yeah.
it's important. We also do a little list of the 10 commandments of what thou shalt not do while looking for homes and under the pre-approval process. So it talks about not changing cars, not making any large purchases, don't buy new furniture for the house that you haven't purchased yet. You know, like everything needs to wait until closing. So, you know, like everyone gets excited, but we talk about just protecting them too, so that it's not a big surprise when they come to closing and they're like, but why don't I qualify anymore? You know, because
it was 6 months, no interest.
right. Yeah. Yes. But I had to get furniture for the house that we're closing on today. Oh, yeah, no house we're closing on today, so.
No,
Yeah.
we had the conversation, and my client just got a $650 car payment.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, that changes. Let's get another pre-approval letter. Yes. And sometimes you have to tell them more than once, because
Yes.
even if you tell them, they're like, I didn't think it changed that much, so that's fun, yes. So the rest of the book kind of goes through just what it looks like to make a purchase, narrowing down the search, making the offer. I like to tell them when we do make an offer, be ready to provide 2 checks to me that day when we're
Yeah.
putting in the offer, one for the earnest money that we'd have agreed to, and one for the option fee that we've agreed to. And I like to collect it when they make the offer, because that way, if they accept the offer that night, I don't have to go back out and meet them, or if they accept it on Tuesday. You know, like, it makes it more convenient for my clients, because checks can be voided, you know, and so
Yeah.
if it doesn't go through for whatever reason, I just give the checks back to them. But that way, I have possession of them, and I can get them to the appropriate people in a timely manner, because the option fee needs to be delivered in the 3 days, and then the earnest money as well needs to be delivered and receipted. So it's just good to have them on hand as soon as the offer is written. One less thing to drive around for. We provide insurance agents. They do a clue report for our clients, so they check to see if anything has been any insurance claims have been put in on the house, and make sure that they've been paid or not paid, or what's happened in the last few years on that, just for those surprise, you know, someone got paid for a roof, but then we're negotiating roof repairs. So, you know, I mean, it just, it kind of, yes, it gives us a little bit more of a heads up, you know, and a little more power as well in knowing if the person has been paid for the roof already, but it hasn't been redone. So it's not something we should negotiate, it's just something they should get taken care of. So just gives us a little more to look at. We have to talk about the inspection. This is my favorite part about an inspection, because inspection repairs is very nerve-wracking as well, because you want to get the best deal for them. But I tell my clients right away when we go through the inspection, it is to check the major mechanicals of the house. So the roof, the plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, and the foundation. And those are major things that we'll negotiate. Some of the other things that come through on the report, maybe their to-do lists when they become homeowners. And that's the best way to present it to them, because they don't think, they're not buying a brand new house, most likely. And even with brand new houses, there's still to-do lists. And so if you present it in that light, the first time you have the conversation, it sets the expectations for them that when they go into that process, they're not going to get everything taken care of. They're not, you know, like then it relieves the pressure of you having to tell them, that's too long of a list to send to the sellers, you know, and so let's focus on the really important big picture items, and then the rest will just be your to-do list to take care of when you are a homeowner. So it lightens everything for them too, their stress level.
Most often than not, the sellers know,
Mhm.
you know, and I used the term broken. If you know, we're going to look at the systems and things that are just broken, you know, that are not, you know, a burner on the stove that's not operating, or the door of the oven has been, you know, screwed
No
up.
hinge, yeah.
Things that are broken, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna address those, and likely the seller already knows. They already know it needs some work. They already know that it.
Yeah, it's usually not a surprise.
It's not a surprise. And so if you ask for the right things, then you're going to more likely get more done. If you just give them a laundry list, they're going to freak out and not want to do anything.
Yeah, and that's how I like to present it to them. Like, let's not frighten them with
Right.
this long list
Insult
of things.
them.
Yes, let's just talk about the very important things that
The
are,
house was
you know,
built in
like
1995.
safety and exactly, you know,
There's
you're
going
not
to be a
gonna
couple
have
of things.
brand new.
you know.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
So it's safety or things that are broken. That's, you know, or and sometimes code, because there are some code things that, like the bonding of the gas line, or you know, everyone's like, and I'm like,
We've lived with this for decades.
they've
it's going to be
changed
okay.
the code. That's the only reason that it came up on there.
Yeah.
So you know.
So do you talk about negotiating money as well?
We do, yeah, we do. We talk about how important, one, if it's a safety feature that the lender will have to have remedied, or if it's, you know, like for their personal safety that they're concerned about. So there's a difference if the lender requires it versus if it's something that they would just like done. And then we talk about the fact that if it's not something major and it's something that they can take care of after closing, sometimes it's better just to get money for it, like in lieu of repairs, so that they can have the contractor do it themselves, and they can have that relationship with the contractor if something isn't right afterwards.
Control
because if
the
you just
outcome.
get it done, they're going to find the cheapest guy to do it. They're going to find someone that makes it look okay, and then your buyer isn't going to be happy anyways. And so if you can just negotiate funds and it's something that they can take care of, and then you can offer another opportunity to have a service provider that you have a personal relationship with, that makes you're like, oh, and then I have Tommy to come in and do this work for you. So then it just gives you more credibility to have someone step in and do whatever needs to be done. So that's why it's important to have relationships with vendors, and you know,
And I
KW
teach a
has
class on that.
yes.
by the way.
And
So we'll
Keller
cover that.
Williams is getting a great, we have a vendor list for us to be able to go to before you have a personal, you know, like, and build on that, so those personal relationships. So it's all about the service that we provide, and that's what's important. So again, we have our our inspector partners that we have a great relationship with that can make it. That's another thing too. The relationships are so important, because if you have a 7-day option period and it's on a Friday, like, who are you going to get to inspect, you know? And so, like, if you have a relationship with an inspection company, you can call and be like, hey, I've got another one. They're like, all right, we'll get right to you, because you're providing them with revenue. And so they're like, we're going to make sure if she's going to continue to call me, then I'm going to be there for her every time she needs me. So you like to get the inspections done early in the option period, so that your buyers have enough time to either get other repair companies out there to quote them for repairs, or just work through what needs to be done during that period, so you're not at 5 o'clock sending an amendment or something that needs to be signed. So
Exactly.
and it gives the sellers time. You always want to be respectful to the sellers as well, and allow them enough time to contemplate what they want to do as well, because it's a negotiation process. It shouldn't be wait till the last minute to try to sneak it in or something. Like, we need to give everyone that respect.
It's an amendment. They don't have to sign it.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's a wish list by the buyer.
Exactly.
Seller is not obligated to.
So they can
sign
wait
it.
until options out, and then the buyer has to decide. So if you give them
Exactly.
more time,
Yeah.
it gives more time for them to be like, okay, you know. And I think everyone wants what's best for everyone. You know, it's
Yeah.
not cutthroat. So it's that respect time, and you respect their time, and they respect yours. So we touch on home warranty and the positives of it and the fact that it's completely negotiable. It's not something that's required. You know, I've had clients that absolutely don't want it because they haven't had great experiences with those companies. But again, if you have a personal relationship with that home warranty company, then you can speak to their strengths. And so, but that's something that's negotiable as well. If you're writing in a contract and there's multiple offers, that's something they can buy later. If it's bottom line for the sellers that it's not in there, like that, and we discussed that, like what looks the best, you know, like is it imperative that you have that home warranty? Can you purchase one yourself? Because it's something that can be purchased any day. It doesn't have to be done on closing. So you know, these are things that we talk about using for negotiation. We touch on closing and what it looks like. Not too much because that's so far down the line for them. And then we provide our service partners that we have for things like cleaning and handymen, painters, electricians, landscaping. So that's my little book. And then that's when I ask them if they have any questions, if there's anything I can help them with, because I love to tell them that truly this is an educational process. I am here to answer any question. There's nothing that's silly or, you know, like inappropriate, maybe. But, you know, so if there's any, do you guys have any questions so far? No? Good. Okay. Okay, good.
They're ready.
Yes. So then that's when I pull out the important paperwork, and I don't put a lot of pressure on getting this signed immediately because I want to make sure that they feel comfortable with me, and I want to make sure that I'm comfortable with them. So if they're ready to go right then it's easy. I'm like, so are you ready to sign some paperwork? And they're like, yes, absolutely. So the IABS, I tell them, I'm like, we went over this before. It's about agency. I will work for you. There will be someone that's working for the seller. If by any chance you fall in love with a home that our broker has listed, we'll just talk a little bit more about that and sign a little more paperwork so that everyone knows who's assigned to who. So here's the phone numbers if you need to reach anyone in our office. Okay, go ahead and sign it. This is not a contract. This is just a statement that I told you about it. I just have to have proof that I've talked to you about it. Excellent. Okay, and then this is our buyer's rep. Information, so your information's here, all of my information is here. We put, the market area is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex because that's where I am allowed to work. So this is where I'll be showing you. The term will start today if you're ready, and then I like to go 6 months, and I like to have it just, traditionally I finish on the end of the month, so we're not looking back at paperwork later. And if we get to that point and you haven't found something yet, then we'll just sign another one and extend it. We just have to have these signed during the closing process, so we just like to take care of it before. And here, again, the intermediary clause, that's all on that side. Confidentiality, I like to tell people anything you say to me is confidential. I will keep it to myself. It is not my story to tell. So, and that continues after the fact. After your deal is closed and everything, hopefully we'll still be working together and I will still keep your secrets. It's like doctor-client privilege, but I don't have to go to med school for it, so. Yeah. So our commission, everyone wonders about that. It is pre-negotiated at 3%, and that is taken care of by the sellers. And it is paid in the county of Dallas because that is where our broker is located. Even if the house is purchased in a different county, our broker here is in Dallas, so that's why that is where it is. We live in a mediation state, so this just says if we disagree about something, we have to go to mediation first. If it can't get resolved there, it continues to the court, then whoever loses has to pay everyone else's bills. So let's not get to that. We can work stuff out. We don't have to get to that. Yes. So IABS is all that we've signed. It just checks that I've gone through that and you've signed it already. And that about covers it. There's some heavy reading for you if you're tired one night and can't sleep. Then just pull this back out and take some reading. And then ask me, any questions you have. I will give you a electronic copy as well so that you have it for your records. I like to sign it electronically, so if you're good with everything on here, I'll just send you our DocuSign, and you can go ahead and sign it, and then you'll have a copy of it as well. So, are we ready to make an find a house.
You explained
Yeah.
it really nice.
Aw, thanks.
That was good. It was so thorough.
I'm sorry?
How long does it usually take you, like if it's a first time home buyer? To go through the
First
process?
time?
First time's probably about 45 to an hour.
Yeah.
Just because I like to take it slow and explain things, and there's a lot of questions, you know, and so, you know, one, I just had a couple that they were like, we were talking, and I like to tell them, like, I try not to have too many clients at once, and that sounds really weird, but I was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years. I still have littles at home, and this was just a venture that I was like, oh, it'd be fun, and then I was like, whoa, it's not part-time. So I had to kind of dial it back a little bit because my family was missing out on time with me, and so I like to limit who I'm actively working with to a few people so that I can give them 100% of my attention. So she was like, oh, but what if when we're ready you already have people? I was like, no, you're already my client, so I'll factor that in. I just won't take any more on. She's like, oh, okay. Like, so it made her feel like she had a place. She had a
made the
special,
exclusive club.
exactly.
But
And
you have to
so-
sign this or you're out.
Right. I mean, no, it wasn't that
No,
bad.
no.
But, you know, they were like, okay. I mean, it helped them, you know, but that was my own thing. That may not be what you do, you know. And so, but then we also talked about, like, because I told her the 10 commandments that she couldn't do. And she's like, well, we're buying a car. And I was like, okay. And she's like, no, but we already have all that money set aside for it. We're just going to pay cash. I was like, oh, then that has nothing to do with it as long as it doesn't touch your down payment. And so then she broke down what her savings was in each area, and I was like, well, thank you for sharing that with me, because then it gives me a little bit more knowledge of what they're able to do. And a lot of people, if you just present something and then just kind of take a seat, they'll come up with stuff and they'll start sharing, and then you'll know a lot about them.
A lot
And then-
more than you want to know.
Yes, sometimes. So, but I think it's to our benefit because then we're able to serve them in the way that they need to be served. So.
In the buyer packet, do you go through, so I wrote down pre-qualification, the mortgage lenders, do they, because I always get a lot of questions about taxes, tax rates. Somewhere in your packet, do you go and explain what consists of their monthly payment, or what their, if they give you like a certain budget, and then what the parameters are? Just 'cause
No,
taxes
the
are-
lenders, I rely on the lenders to do
Yeah,
that.
lenders, so you just-
Because it will change for whatever neighborhood they're looking at. I mean,
Yeah.
Coppell's taxes are different than Flower
Yeah.
Mound's taxes. And so, a lot of people do ask me that. And I think it's important to know, where I live in Coppell, so I do know a lot about Coppell. I know everyone's like, oh, their taxes are so high. And I was like, actually, their taxes aren't that high. Their property values are high. Therefore, their taxes seem high. But we have a phenomenal school district, and that's what gets paid for. So, you know, they can go and then you say, and here's the Coppell ISD website for you to make your own opinion on that, you know. So we have to also be careful not to rave too much about something and say it's the best, because that's an opinion. And so they can come back and say, like, I bought in this neighborhood because my realtor swore that this was the best school, and then it wasn't for them. So, you know, it's just, you have to be careful, and you say, in my opinion, this is this and this is that, but here's the website that I would go to confirm.
So do you put those websites in there, like a graceful.org or like a Crime Watch, or just kind of say?
No.
when
I
they're
don't,
coming?
because you don't want
No.
to feed them too much, because if
Okay.
you give them the Crime Watch, or like they're like, oh, we can't live here, you know, so you don't want to give too much information, but you do want to steer them to the proper
The resource,
places,
yeah.
the proper resources to gather their own information.
Don't be the source.
Yes.
Be the
Yeah.
resource.
Yes.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
be the source of that information, point them to the.
Because what if you give them the wrong, what if you give them a website that says like school ratings, because that's what a lot of people are concerned about,
Mhm.
and you give one site, and so they purchase in that neighborhood because that school rating was a 9, and they later find out it was a 7,
Mhm.
according to whatever they researched.
Some other site,
Right.
you know, some other
Yeah.
site.
And
So,
that's why
yeah.
you just don't do that.
Yeah.
For schools, it's important to give them the
Texas ED.
yes,
actual
or
Texas one.
or Coppell ISD if you're looking
Yeah.
at Coppell, so they can go to their site and do all the research.
Let
they
them do
wanna
the research, and they're pretty
Yeah.
good at it.
Yeah,
Let me tell you.
most people
I
are
told them to
already
Google
know.
it.
Yeah,
You can Google
Google
anything,
it,
you'll
look
find
up.
it.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. I mean, and they can say like, oh, I found this on that website, and if you've never seen it, just like, oh, that's interesting. I'll check that out as well. But here's the website that I get my information from, so that you're giving them a resource to go to compare, because the internet, you can put anything on there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't want to suggest one over another. Kind of like our lenders. We have a variety of them, you know, and so same thing. Like, these are the sources that I find.
And that's
very
why it's important to
informative.
pre-approve your clients, because that lender gives an overestimate of what taxes are, what homeowners insurance are, so they can give them an overestimate of their payment, and then they will also have that conversation with your client and tell them, when you narrow down a house or a neighborhood, I can give you more actual figures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that way, they're not, that's why it's important, because they're not shooting in the dark.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because sometimes lenders are. I mean, you know, they're like, oh, it's kind of like this. But another point, I just thought of this, homeowners association fees.
Yeah.
So those are not included in the mortgage.
No.
So it's always important to have a conversation with new buyers, old buyers, whichever. I have a client that was looking at townhomes versus single family homes, and he's like, oh, the HO, and I'm like, this is $200 a month. So you have to factor that into your payment. You know, so if you can only afford this much home, with $200 a month, you're not going to be able to factor that, you know, and so it's that's where our expertise comes into play for them, you know, because this is only $400 a year. So, you know, but what does that include, and what, you know, like, so it's important for us to know what that homeowner, not in detail, but just in general, what that homeowner's fee would include.
Yeah,
So that
and
they're-
HOA can go up, it doesn't go
Mhm.
down.
No.
Yeah, never goes down, it
Never.
goes
Same
up.
thing with taxes. Taxes will go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can kind of factor those because they're at a max percentage rate.
Mhm.
Where HOA, they can have an assessment, they can have
They need a new
special
road.
assessment, they need new
Yeah.
roads, they need new roofs for the whole complex.
Yeah.
So then it goes up.
Foundation fails.
Yeah.
A lot of the websites they have, or sometimes one of my clients will send me like a little snapshot. Hey, this is what I got for a monthly mortgage, and then you immediately look at the tax rate. The tax rate that's in there is not.
So low.
It's so low,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, it's
Well,
not the right
You're like,
tax rate.
let me
Yeah.
get you in
I've done
touch
that.
with,
Your
yeah,
mother.
and then you're like,
Yeah.
let me get you in touch with my lender,
Yeah.
and he will be able to give you a better picture of what you can afford.
Yeah, and
That's
we-
another way to kind of make that connection.
Or like a mud tax. I mean, in Forney
Yeah.
and Hoffman, there's
Yes.
some
Yeah.
taxes.
I went on a mortgage calculator website and just to plug in, you know,
Yeah.
all that. And so, because I know the insurance was low, the
Yeah.
taxes were low, everything was low.
And then surprise, $500 more payment a month.
Right.
And so
Well.
but you could adjust it, and so I plugged in
For
the real
real.
numbers, you know,
Mhm.
but most buyers don't know
No.
to do that.
Yeah.
And they're
just
relying
assume
on
that it's
us,
correct,
yeah,
but it's
and
not.
they do rely on us to help them
Right,
through that,
right.
so. But we don't have to own that either. Like,
Right.
I've learned that, like,
Yeah.
you don't have to own their responsibilities.
Exactly.
You do, we can do this, but they have to do this, so.
Right.
Yeah. So, aside from that consultation, in that consultation too, if I haven't already had that conversation, I really like to narrow down what they're searching for. And we have these buyer information sheets that we have, and so they give you name. So important. I forgot this part to begin with. So important when you're having this consultation and you're filling out paperwork for them to get their legal name, because it is surprising how many people do not even think about that until you're writing a contract and you're on the last page and you're like, okay, so your name's Dewey, right? No, it's Dwayne.
Okay.
How many pages do you have to go back and fix all that on? So it's so important to begin with. Just be like, hey, can I get your legal names for our paperwork? And then immediately say, not spouse, but is there another responsible party or responsible adult that will be on the loan with you or on the
Yes.
mortgage, or I mean
Yes.
on the
Contract.
deed with you? Yeah,
Yes.
the contract with you. And so that way you're getting legal names, and if there's two or one, you know, and so
Middle initial.
yes, how do they sign? How do they, you know, because that all comes up later in the contract. So
I have a question. Because
Yes.
I've actually run through this before. So if it's a couple that's purchasing the house, but mom and dad are on the loan, who do you put as a buyer on the contract? Just the couple? Or you put the couple and the parents?
everyone has to be on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the lender won't write the loan unless whoever is responsible for it is on the contract, and that's who's going to be on the deed.
Or
So
something like
yeah,
that, yeah.
so it's going to be a lot of people on there, but they
Yeah.
all have
Yeah.
to sign.
Having said that, if it's a husband and wife
Yeah.
or two people that are buying the property and only one is going to be on the note,
Uh-huh.
they still have to be on the contract.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the lender will know that only one of them's going to be on the note. Maybe the other one, his credit's bad or
Mhm.
whatever, you know. So
Mhm.
they only.
But
put
the
the note.
both will be on the deed.
But
Yes.
they'll both be on the deed.
If that's
they'll
what
both-
they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That
both
does
have to be on the
depend,
contract.
that does depend too though, because because some lenders say, no, just leave me off the contract and just put Yeti.
Yeah,
No,
I've
that's what
had
I'm
that
saying.
before.
Yeah, that's
Where
what
the
I'm saying.
lender's like, don't put that person on the contract, just put this person.
Yeah, and that's
Well, if
fine,
it's
but
a-
husband and wife only, not not parents.
Co-parent.
They
yeah,
have to be.
co-parent. Well, if it's an investment property, you can buy with
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
But if it's you're gonna live in the
Person,
property, if it's
yeah.
homestead, both
It
have
has
to be on the
Yeah, that's
contract.
true.
So they can get the homestead.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can have both on the contract, both on the deed, one on the note.
Just less
Mhm.
signing for one person.
Yeah.
On
Two pages,
posting.
not big.
Yeah, yeah, not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lender will make that decision who's on the note. if
Which
both
is
of them
why
are.
it's good to have a relationship
Yep.
with your lender so that you know
That's
before
it.
you start writing the
Yes.
contract
That's
or
right.
have to make an amendment to remove someone. So.
Instead of dealing with Quicken Loans.
Mhm.
Double
Yes.
loan, double
Yeah.
loan.
I know this is a lot of information. Another. Well, no, that's another story. But yeah, I was like,
For
that's
another
another
day.
class. Yeah.
Another class.
Yeah. So, are there any other questions? And if you guys want to work through anything like buyer's consultations, I would be happy to sit with you and do some one-on-one
Role play.
role play. I forgot the word. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So.
Is your buyer information sheet secret or is it shareable?
I will have to ask my team lead. on that one. Not sure.
Okay.
Well, Christy let me take pictures of her entire listing packet that she does like that.
The buyer
Oh,
package.
so yeah, you can take a picture of our buyer packet, I'm sure, but I'm sure the buyer information sheet is not secret.
I know,
mean,
I
it's
just, because I've seen other people's, and so I
Yes.
just want to see yours.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, there's so many of them.
I still haven't made one up.
Oh.
Because I just,
Buyer
I
consultation.
have
So I'll
my
tell you,
little-
I can tell you what's on it.
Yeah, you
Okay,
should
so
ask. Yeah.
they ask for contact information, and then the location, price, their motivation, whether they're working with an agent or not, if they've been pre-approved for a mortgage, and then you set the appointment.
Oh, it's just like the LP Mama.
It is,
Oh,
exactly.
Just-
Yeah. Are you workman too?
Yes, that's the workman sheet. When you
Yeah.
lifted it up, I was like, that's the workman sheet.
Yeah, that's what we do. So yeah. Yeah, so then it just breaks that down, like the criteria, what they need, you know, like, and I think asking for their motivation is a good idea because it's like, are they just looking for when their perfect house comes on the market, or they have to move, you know? So
Yeah.
so that way you kind of know their pain and how you
their
can,
pain level.
Mhm. yeah, and how quickly you need to move and how much extra.
So
work you have.
Tanya, have you ever been like worked with a buyer that was so consuming that how do you deal with someone that wants all of your attention?
Well, I cry a lot. No. Yes, I have, and
We all have.
Yeah.
Yes, we all have, and that's the thing. I have learned so much in this short period of time. I literally have had every kind of client, like where I met them at an open house, and they were like, "We want to work with you," and the next week we bought a house, and I mean, it was amazing. And then the ones that wasn't amazing, where we, and I've only had one, which I think is amazing. Like,
That's, you haven't been in long enough.
I know,
so
I
just
know, but it
give
broke my
yourself some
heart.
time.
So I
Yeah.
had to learn a lot of boundaries
Yes.
and really what should affect me and what shouldn't affect me. So yes, unfortunately, I did not handle it well, just because I thought that it was my job to do whatever they needed, and I didn't want to make them unhappy and all that. So I've learned from that I have to protect my time. I have to protect my family's time. And so this particular client consumed 2 weeks full, like intense full.
Only 2 weeks?
Yes, because I
It was intense.
well, I was
Full.
gone for the first, because I was on a team. We wrote a contract on Friday. I flew to Washington the next day to run a marathon, so I was out of pocket, and then when I got back, it was just chaos and running. So yes, I didn't set those boundaries like I should have, and I think it's important, and they'll respect it too, maybe, some people. But if not, then maybe they need to find a different agent to work with, because it does become what works for you too.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to give them everything, and a lot of people kind of just need a firm hand sometimes and be like,
you do.
I understand that you're worried about that, but that is something that we can address on this day when we have an appointment, or no, I'm not going out to that house for the third day in a row for contractors to come in. Like I can schedule them all on one day, or you can take care of that once you've purchased the house. So it's
Yeah.
just, it's always a learning process,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you don't know, and then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? never set the boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think it's important just to let them know that these are the times you have available. And for me, that was hard too, because I was like, well, I don't technically have anything scheduled. So I'd be like, sure. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not eating family dinner with my family again, you know? So it just, you do have to block your time and just say, like, they're buying a house. There's no fire in real estate. You know, it will happen. And so just remain calm and set the boundaries so that you don't get overworked.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, if you're not under contract and it's not like close to closing, then just be like, I just don't know if I have the time for you. Let me find someone that does. And then give someone that you like.
Or don't.
Or don't like.
Or
that client.
has more time than you do.
Yes, have more time. But you know what? That
Yeah.
client might be completely different with that agent
Yeah.
too. So it just, they don't always work. There's not always a good fit. And you just have to know when that time is. If we weren't under contract, I would have suggested someone else work with them, just because it became apparent that they wanted way too much of my time. So
Have you had someone who's coming in from another state and they're wishy-washy on the area that they want to live in and they can't make up their mind and they keep bouncing from one location to another? And
yes.
how do you deal with that one? Because I have one.
Pick one.
So are they currently living here now?
Yes.
Oh, that makes it a little more difficult. Luckily, I had ones
He's
that
living
were,
with his sister.
Okay.
His wife is still in LA.
Okay. So I had ones that were not sure where they wanted to live all over the Metroplex. And so luckily they flew in for like 3 days. And so it was literally 3 days of driving all over the Metroplex.
We did that.
Yeah. And then they didn't buy anything because it was, you know.
Too much.
That's where we are.
Too
He's
much.
lost- he's
Yeah.
lost-
Outside.
But then
He's
they
lost
came
4
back
properties.
and they were like, okay, they figured out where they wanted to focus. And I helped a little. I was like, I think you'll be happier over here. This is where the community that you have
Described.
expressed is where it
Yes.
is. And so,
And I've done that too.
oh, yeah.
Well, I mean,
But if they've lost 4, you really have to drive it into them that things that you want are going. So we need to be concise on where we're looking, you know, and be like, let's just mark one area off. And then only
We
talk
did.
about
We're
these
down to
2.
2 areas
Hey,
now.
Okay.
That's
So 2 out of 4.
Okay.
yeah, that's good.
So we're closer,
Yeah.
but we're still not there.
Yeah.
I got his lender and his pre-approval letter finally, though.
Okay.
So
That's
So
a good
whichever
step.
whichever one, I mean, you may put a couple more offers in, and whichever one.
It's
But
giving
not
you
just
practice.
it's not just her client, because he has to consult the family.
Yes.
Could-
The
yes,
sister.
the sister that's moving in, and the mom and his parents.
Oh,
Fun.
yeah, that's always.
That's a lot.
His dad and his mom are the easiest.
Uh-huh.
They picked the house.
You're like, let's just
They
take
want the
you
one in Las
shopping.
Colinas, but the one they really wanted, they lost because he sat too long
and
contemplating.
so that
I
I would
like
use
it.
that as a learning.
I like it when it's
Yeah.
meaningful. It has to be
Mhm.
pain. Sometimes pain level 1 isn't enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's level 2 or 3.
And then just keep reminding them. Don't pretend that they didn't happen. Like, remember that we lost that house because
Yes.
we didn't make a decision quick enough? Let's do this.
And I said that in front of his parents
Yeah.
and his wife when she was here last
Yeah.
time.
And so
Well,
they're
let
like,
them put the pressure on. That's
Yeah.
all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Okay.
yeah.
What other
Yeah. Anything
questions
else?
do you have? Oh, we sure appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank
no,
you
it
so
was
much.
That
not
was
as
great.
Not as scary as I thought it would be.
Of course not, because you're talking about what you know
Yes,
so well.
yeah.
You know.
And I enjoy it, so it's good.
I like how concise it was, so thank you.
Yeah. No, I love to hear that.
I haven't had to do a presentation because they are all just like in, sign the paperwork, and I'm like, okay,
Let's go.
here we go.
Yeah. And we, you know, I mean, I have a lot of those too that literally, I've only done this presentation to a few of them because there's like, okay, let's go. I'm like, okay, you want to make sure that you're working with me? So, yeah. It's been good. It's been really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Signing off on my last.
Signing off.